Hey there, my name is Tom, and I'm here in this video to talk to you about the pairing of beer with food and share why I feel that beer is the perfect beverage to marry up with food. From a background point of view, I've been in the beer business my whole life, my whole career, and predating my career in the college and high school years and predating that as well. Beyond the beer piece, though, I've really been focusing on the pairing of beer with food over the past 3 years. And there's a science to it, and we'll touch on that science in this video. The key question for me is, what is the first and foremost thing that we need to look for when we're pairing a beer with a food? And the answer to that is matching intensity. Food has an intrinsic intensity associated with it, and that comes as a function of what is that food and how is it prepared. And if it's a protein, does it have a high fat content? Or if it's something that's got a silky creaminess to it, that will inform our decision as to what beer we will want to pair with that food item. Above and beyond this idea of matching a beer's intensity with the intensity of the food, we next need to give some thought to seeking a beer or a beer style that will provide either complementary flavors relative to the food or perhaps contrasting flavors. And complementary speaks to itself, and perhaps contrasting does as well. The contrasting thing, think of sweet and sour, right? Whenever you have chefs preparing food, they're looking for things that will contrast and provide some edginess to one another, and they're trying to provide a flavor combination that's perhaps eye-opening to our brain, and like, wow, I didn't see that coming. So there you have it, high level. Look for matching our intensities of our beer with our food, seeking complementary flavors and contrasting flavors. But beyond those three things, another variable we have to work with in our Rubik's Cube, as it were, is the alcohol level of the beer that we're looking to work with. And as we climb again that intensity ladder from the food item's point of view, in an ideal world, we would also climb that same intensity ladder from an alcohol point of view. And beer provides a pretty broad gamut of options from an alcohol range point of view. So what's up with alcohol? Why is alcohol intriguing? And the answer maybe is somewhat intuitive. We all find perhaps alcohol intriguing in one regard or another. But in regards to pairing it with food, the alcohol acts as a cleanser for our palate. If you go to a fancy restaurant, oftentimes they will serve you sorbet or some form of palate cleansing food. And the reason there is that they're seeking to refresh and reset, hit the reset button on your tongue and more importantly your brain, so that the next course, the next bite of food is something that's brand new and your palate's experiencing it for the first time with a clean, blank slate. Once we give some thought to the alcohol side of it, in addition to the complementary, in addition to the contrasting, in addition to it does this style match from an intensity point of view. So above and beyond those four elements, where do we go? Where do we get started? And the start part of it for me is, thinking about imbibing in, taking part in a beer pairing dinner. But before we can really give thought to that, we have to think about our beer styles. And our beer styles are informed by the ingredients that we use. So ultimately, it's the ingredients that we choose that make beer pair well with food. The two items are made in many similar manners. So if you just take malt alone, malt is malted barley, but the reason that we call it malted barley is the fact that we roast the barley. Much like if you were to throw a steak on the grill, you're roasting or cooking that steak, and that's creating some flavors and some aromas. And so we have a similar thing going on from a flavor profile point of view. As we roast that malt, we're getting a deeper color. That deeper color connotates a deeper, richer, perhaps toastier, perhaps biscuity flavor that's going to be imparted to your beer. So those words and those thoughts help us inform and marry up with the beverage, or rather the food item that we're going to pair it with. Beyond the malt, you have to also then think about the hops. Hops have a variety of flavors. They mostly impart bitterness. So the bitterness seeks to serve as a counterpart to the malt sweetness, you got the edginess of the bitterness, but also there's a good deal of flavor that comes with the hops. And then again, depending upon what type of hop and what its alpha acid level is and other parameters associated with that hops will help you in your beer selection, because that hop will also help to serve to cleanse your palate, much like alcohol does. And then the final main ingredient for beer is the yeast, and yeast also can impart flavor. And more importantly, the yeast does like the heavy lifting when it comes to producing the alcohol. So there you have it. In a nutshell, you've got the considerations, right? The intensity, the complementary flavors, the contrasting flavors, the alcohol level. Those are things that help us decide and make key decisions on which beer style we're going to pair with which food. And then the beer style, again, is largely informed by those ingredients and how the brewer meshes those ingredients together to make the beer. So where do we get started if we really want to roll up our sleeves and jump into it head first into a beer pairing dinner? My suggestion would be to find an on-premise establishment, a bar, tavern, restaurant, that offers beer pairing dinners. They may not be as common as wine pairing dinners. Wine has owned that space for hundreds, if not thousands of years, but it's my strong contention that beer has every right, in fact, perhaps even more so of a right, to play in that domain due to the flavor dynamics that are in play with the beer and the different beer styles that we have to work with. So again, seeking out a restaurant that provides beer pairing dinners would be one way of dipping your toe in the proverbial water. Another option would be just to say, I'm going to give this a go. I'm going to do a beer pairing dinner on my own. My suggestion maybe would be to start small, because it's a lot of work. But there's no such thing as a bad beer pairing dinner in my mind, right? So if you have one with your close-knit group of friends, you're going to learn, just like you've learned anything in life, by trial and error. There's also books, but I've been told by a very important person in my life that people don't read books in this day and age. But if you were a book reader, I would suggest you go and get the Brewmaster's Table by Garrett Oliver. For me, that is the Bible on how to scientifically and aromatically and taste bud-wise, how to match beer with food, and some very concrete suggestions of beer styles that really rock it with certain food pairings. If the book thing's not your cup of tea and you want to simply ping me with an email, I encourage you to give that a whirl. I do have a day job, as I mentioned, so aside from the day job, when I'm not doing my day job in the evening, I'd be happy to correspond. If you've got different ideas on, hey, what about this food? What style might I pair with this? Or contrariwise, I've got a beer style that I'm really rocking. What food or foods might work well with it? Shoot me an email and we'll see where it goes. So in the meantime, I look forward to seeing where your beer journey takes you, and I look forward to continuing to traveling down my beer food pairing journey that I'm on. Cheers.